Today we're going to look at three popular types of farming: layers, fish farming, and dairy cattle, and see which one is best for starting small. Imagine you have a little bit of savings and maybe a small piece of land, and you want to turn it into steady income without taking big loans or owning a huge farm. We'll compare these options across important factors like how much money you need to start, the space required, the skills you'll need, how fast you can start earning, how steady your income will be, the risks, and how strong the market demand is. By the end, you'll know exactly which option is the most practical and profitable for someone starting small. For each factor, I'll give a score from 1 to 10, where 10 means excellent and 1 means very poor. At the end, we'll add up all the scores to see which farming option is the best choice for a beginner with little capital. This guide is simple, realistic, and designed to help people anywhere in the world, whether you are in Africa, Asia, the Americas, or beyond. Let's start with startup capital. That's just a fancy way of saying how much money you need to get started. Layers, or egg-laying chickens, are the easiest on your pocket. You can begin with just 20 to 50 birds. All you really need is a small coop, a few feeders and drinkers, the chicks themselves, and some feed. Most beginners can handle this without taking on big loans or debts, which is why I rate layers 8 out of 10 for affordability. Fish farming is a bit more expensive. You'll need a pond or tanks, a steady supply of clean water, fingerlings, that's baby fish, and quality feed. Even if you want to start small, setting up the pond or tanks can eat up a chunk of money. That's why fish farming scores 6 out of 10 for startup costs. Dairy cattle are the priciest of all. Even buying just one cow is a big investment. On top of that, you need proper housing, a clean area to milk, enough feed, and sometimes extra equipment to store milk safely. For someone just starting with limited funds, this is tough, which is why I give dairy cattle only 3 out of 10. Now let's talk about how much space you need for each type of farming. Layers, or egg-laying chickens, need very little space. Some people even keep them in their backyards. You can start with a small flock and still have room to grow later. Because they don't take up much land, I give layers 9 out of 10 for space efficiency. Fish farming needs more room than chickens. You have to have ponds or tanks, plus space for water storage, and sometimes an area to feed the fish. It's more demanding on land, so fish farming scores 7 out of 10 for space needs. Dairy cattle need the most space of all. If they graze, you need a lot of land. Even in stalls, cows require a big shelter and enough area to move around and feed comfortably. That's why dairy cattle score 4 out of 10 in terms of space. Next, let's talk about skills and knowledge. Think about it this way. If you've never farmed before, you probably want something you can learn quickly. Layers are perfect for that. All you need to know is how to feed them, clean the coop, keep their water fresh, and protect them from disease. Many beginners pick it up fast with a bit of research or by asking experienced farmers. That's why layers score 8 out of 10 for ease of learning. Fish farming, on the other hand, is trickier. Even a small mistake like not checking oxygen levels in the pond can wipe out your entire stock. You also need to understand how many fish to keep, when to feed them, and how to prevent disease. Because of these extra steps, fish farming scores 6 out of 10 for skill level. Dairy cattle are the most demanding. You have to know how to feed them correctly, notice signs of sickness early, manage breeding, and milk hygienically. If you get any of this wrong, it can be costly or even dangerous for the animal. That's why for beginners, dairy cattle score only 5 out of 10 for skills. Now let's talk about time to returns, which means how quickly you can start making money. Layers usually begin laying eggs in about 5 months. Once they start, you can collect and sell eggs almost every day. Because the income begins relatively quickly and is consistent, I give layers 8 out of 10 for time to returns. Fish reach market size in around 4 to 6 months, depending on the type of fish. Unlike eggs, you usually sell them all at once during harvest, so the money comes in a single batch rather than steadily. This earns fish farming 7 out of 10 for how soon you see returns. Dairy cattle are the slowest. If you start with a young heifer, it can take 2 to 3 years before she produces milk. That long wait makes dairy cattle much slower in giving returns, so they score only 2 out of 10. Now let's talk about cash flow. That's basically how often money comes into your pocket. For layers, it's one of the best. Once your hens start laying eggs, you can sell them almost every day or at least every week. This steady stream of income makes it much easier to pay for feed, water, and other ongoing costs without stress. That's why I rate layers 9 out of 10 for cash flow. They give you money quickly and consistently, which is perfect for beginners. Fish farming works differently. Usually you invest in fingerlings, feed, and pond maintenance for several several months and then harvest all your fish at once. That means there's a long wait between spending money and getting paid. If something goes wrong during that period, like a disease outbreak or low oxygen in the pond, you might lose your entire investment. Because of this gap and the higher risk, fish farming scores 6 out of 10 for cash flow. Dairy cattle can also bring in money regularly since milk can be sold daily just like eggs. This is great for maintaining steady income. But there's a catch. If you start with a young heifer, you have to wait until she calves before you can get any milk. That could take a couple of years, which delays your returns. Taking that into account, I give dairy cattle 7 out of 10 for cash flow. They're steady once they start producing, but it takes patience to get there. Now let's talk about risk. Imagine you're just starting out. You want a business that's not going to lose you everything in a day. Layers are fairly safe. Sure, diseases like Newcastle or parasites can affect your birds, but with good hygiene, regular vaccinations, and careful management, most problems can be avoided. That's why layers get a 7 out of 10 for safety. They're manageable even for beginners. Fish farming can be a little scary. Picture a farmer checking his pond one morning and discovering the oxygen levels dropped overnight. If he's not careful, all the fish could die within hours. Things like water quality, pond maintenance, and sudden leaks make it riskier. For this reason, fish farming scores 6 out of 10 in terms of safety. Dairy cattle are no different. One sick cow can be expensive to treat, and losing even a single animal can hit your finances hard. If you're just starting and money is tight, this risk can be stressful. That's why dairy cattle earn only 5 out of 10. They demand experience and careful attention to stay safe. Next, let's look at market demand, which tells us how easy it is to sell the products. Layers have very strong demand. Eggs are eaten daily in homes, restaurants, schools, and hotels almost everywhere. They are affordable and easy to sell, which is why I rate layers 9 out of 10 for market demand. Fish also have good demand in many areas since fish is a popular source of protein. However, prices can fluctuate depending on the season and local supply, which can affect profits. This gives fish farming a 7 out of 10. Dairy cattle produce milk, a staple food in most countries. The challenge is that milk spoils quickly without proper refrigeration, making it harder to sell in some areas. For that reason, dairy cattle score 8 out of 10 for market demand. Now, let's add up all the scores to see which option comes out on top. Layers total 58 out of 70, fish farming comes to 44 out of 70, and dairy cattle reach 33 out of 70. The verdict is clear. For a beginner with limited money, layers are the best choice. They are affordable to start, need very little space, are easy to manage, provide quick returns, and have strong demand almost everywhere. Fish farming can also be a good option, especially if you have access to water and can handle the technical requirements. But it requires more knowledge and careful management, which can be challenging for a newcomer. Dairy cattle can be profitable, but they demand a bigger investment, more land, and advanced skills. This makes them better suited for experienced farmers or those who already have a larger budget. The final word is simple. If you are new to farming with little capital, start small with layers. Learn the business, manage your flock well, and gradually expand. With patience, good care, and smart reinvestment, you can later grow into other types of farming and increase your income step by step. Layers are not only beginner-friendly but also highly profitable. Eggs are in constant demand, and with a well-managed flock, you can enjoy daily or weekly income. Because the costs of feeding and housing are relatively low, most of the money you earn goes straight into profit, making this a reliable way to start earning from farming. Fish farming can also be very profitable, especially if you focus on high-demand species like tilapia or catfish. The profits can be substantial at harvest time since you sell many fish at once. However, the income is less regular and the risks are higher, so good planning and careful management are essential to make it work. Dairy cattle can generate strong profits too, but the investment is bigger and it takes longer to see returns. Milk and other dairy products have steady demand, but proper care, feeding, and equipment are crucial to avoid losses. For beginners with limited funds, dairy is best approached after gaining experience and building capital from smaller ventures like layers. Starting with layers gives you a solid foundation. Once you understand basic farm management and cash flow, you can expand into fish or dairy to diversify your income and increase overall profitability. This step-by-step approach reduces risk while helping you grow your farm sustainably. I mainly teach people about poultry farming, showing beginners how to start small and grow their business successfully. If you want to learn exactly how to start with just 50 chickens, check out the next video on screen. It's part of a playlist full of other useful videos to guide you step by step. Also, be sure to visit my online store using the link in the description to download must-have toolkits for poultry farmers. These resources will make managing your farm much easier and faster. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any future tips on starting and growing your poultry farm. Start small, learn well, and watch your farm grow.